to Bloody Good Horror, covering the best and worst of the horror genre since Halloween 2007. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, you heathens out there in Horrorland. My name is Eric, and you have found yourself at Bloody Good Horror, the place for all things horror, Mark, you might say. Good.
For some things,
Good.
for some horror things.
Good, bad, and otherwise. Beer,
I wish
stuff, books.
you wouldn't slut shame our listeners.
I'm the host of Bloody Good Horror, and we're here tonight to talk about I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House, question mark?
You
Beautiful.
certainly are.
Really a terrible name for Google, but that's the name of the movie. It is a Netflix original, and it is what we are reviewing this week. Joining me tonight, first up on the show, back in the house, the high priestess of books and stuff at Bloody Good Horror. Her name is Cece.
Hello.
Cece, I'm sure there are just incredibly exciting things happening with the book club right now, which we will get to in a moment.
I think I can hold on till then.
Nice. Next up on the show, he is the web developer and all the editors at Bloody Good Horror, except for whatever Andy is. His name is Mark.
Yeah, that sounds right.
You have too many titles. I can't remember anymore.
Just I like benevolent overlord. That's how I like to sign my emails.
You're too nice to be the boss, you know? You need a bad cop.
Right, that's why I'm the benevolent overlord.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Next up on the show, he drinks beer. He's wearing a camo hat tonight, like a GD American. He's coming to you from Chicago, and his name is Joe.
Fuck yeah, man. Fishing season's upon us, man. Do some fishing, man.
We were having a whole Slack conversation the other day, like maybe it was last week, about how Larry the Cable Guy doesn't have a southern accent.
And then it turned into a conversation about how Gilbert Gottfried's voice is not his real voice.
Oh, of course
Yeah.
not. Of course not. You can't walk around with that voice.
Wait,
Really?
has anyone ever heard him talk in a different way?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a
John,
video.
you got to
posted,
get
man.
on Slack, man.
Oh, sorry.
Most of my Gilbert Gottfried experience comes from Howard Stern, which is mostly
Does he
just
talk in his voice like
he
that?
Yeah.
does, and it was always mostly just Howard like trying to get him to say incredibly offensive things, and seeing what happened. I mean, that's kind of generally what Howard Stern is, I guess, but.
Show that they've been running in front of a lot of HBO stuff, and the whole joke is about how no one's ever heard Jared Kushner talk, and then they show this like old clip of him from CNBC from like 2009, but they've dubbed it with Gilbert Gottfried's voice.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty amazing.
He seems to be having this like little mini renaissance of just like using his voice for like that. I saw that clip the other day of him reading excerpts from 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh, my
Well,
God.
if
Oh,
you were,
boy.
I mean, think about it.
Lords.
If you were our
Sounds
age,
erotic.
he was oddly like omnipresent in the '90s, like not a big star, but just kind of always around. You know what I mean? Like,
He was in the Problem Child movies. He was
Yeah.
the voice of the
Yeah.
parrot in Aladdin.
right?
You know?
Exactly. Oh God, wait, what? He was?
Yeah.
Eric,
Yeah.
Eric,
Nice.
come on.
What's the Iago?
Anyway,
isn't that his name?
I missed somebody here tonight, guys. He is the light in my universe, the wind beneath my wings. He also does a little bit of businessing for Bloody Good Horror, and he comes to you from Manhattan, New York City. His name is John Schnars.
Eric, the intro music has ended. I'm sorry.
You missed the opportunity to introduce him as the pretty thing that lives in your heart.
Oh,
Yeah.
damn it.
Oh,
Man,
I
You've been
had
saving that,
we need
haven't
to
you?
start over.
I had a really long day today, so nobody's getting
No
any witty
excuses,
intros
no.
today.
No time for really uninspired movie puns.
I have this
I think
picture
Eric's-
too. Go ahead, Joe.
yeah, go. No, I think Eric's made it perfectly clear that he does not care for the gray undershirt, John, and especially Sans V-neck.
I think gray's okay.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
I think gray's
Fair.
okay, but I think the V-neck would be better. I agree with Joe.
Yeah, I just think maybe he resents that you started covering up more on the show.
You know,
All right, guys, let's move it.
it's
Let's move
all
on.
it's all up here, buddy. I don't need it. You know, I got it all in the vault. Speaking of, I have this picture of you, Schnars, in a tuxedo drinking wine, and actually, you kind of look like Jared Kushner in this picture here. So, in the video.
The two have never been spotted in the same
Yeah.
place. So.
There you go.
They both live in Manhattan.
Well,
Just
Important to note, yeah.
Just saying. So tonight we're talking about this movie about the pretty thing in the house. As I mentioned, Netflix original, and I didn't even realize this. Same director as last week's movie, The Black Coat's Daughter.
That was like the reason.
How would you?
There's no way of
I'm
knowing.
glad I wasn't the only one, not listening to the show last week who didn't catch on to that.
Except I
We
was
did
on the
mention
show.
it a half dozen times.
To
Probably.
be fair, Cece, you were also not on the show
Right.
last week, whereas Eric was
Right.
actively involved in the
True.
conversation.
Oh God.
Actively is a stretch.
Oh,
Cece, so tell me how having patrons on Slack has influenced the BGH book club.
You mean, well, I don't know how much of the book club it has definitely influenced
but,
my
I mean,
spamming of dog pictures all day.
But I mean, there is a whole book club thread, so
Yes,
suddenly you have
I'm-
this direct contact with all the book club readers.
Yes, I digress. We talk about books all day, so if you're a nerd, you should totally sign up for the Slack. We have got several new suggestions that have been added to the book club to read list. So it'll probably start next year since we kind of have the rest of this year planned out. But we're doing recommendations all day and talking about nerdy, literature. So
Yeah,
it's fun.
I can attest to that because I try to check in with all the channels, and like once a day I go in the book club and I'm just like, I can't follow any of this, and then I leave. So
It's
He
always
finds-
a nice recommendation. I know that our book club readers are normally reading more than just one book. So if you're looking for recommendations, that is the first stop I would make for sure.
yes, and if you just want some, camaraderie with some book people.
This is true. We have a listener, Alyssa, who works in Texas, and she took a bunch of pictures of the tiny books at her job. So that was really interesting to see. So yeah,
That
just
stuff
nerd
is-
out all day.
That stuff was cool. Yeah.
that does sound riveting. Can literally hear people signing up as we speak.
It's
Well,
like-
it's
It's like their
you'd
books.
be surprised.
Yeah.
Honey, get the credit card. There's tiny book talk.
If you want to check that out, it is actually a very cool little community we've got going on there on Slack. All you have to do is become a patron. Check out patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. John,
Yes, Eric.
you know who's coming back this week?
Casey.
The Fassbender.
Oh wait. Oh, you're right.
That
I was like, huh?
handsome SOB, Michael Fassbender, Robot Fassbender, is coming back into my life.
You know what though? Like, I don't even remember what his role was in Prometheus at this point. I'm gonna have to go watch that movie again, which I'm really not.
He was the handsome, smooth-faced robot man.
Yeah,
He
it's
was
pretty
the,
much, I think, the same type of character.
Yeah,
he's
remember when
playing.
he colors his hair and he styles it in the beginning of the movie? I don't know if
Lawrence of Arabia.
Yes, thank you.
He was
Oh,
Too
didn't he turn out
Fassbender
to
and
be
Too
like the bad
Furious.
guy? Spoiler alert.
Well,
Sort
kind
of.
of.
Sort of.
I mean, he's a vessel to fulfill his master's needs.
Mm.
Yeah,
sure.
All right.
I was one of those in college too. For my roommate.
Where are you going with this, Easy? Oh,
But yeah, I'm pretty excited. Alien Covenant on the way.
I
That
gained
is
so much
correct.
weight.
What?
Joe is going down some real dark places right now.
John, on the Schnarznometer here, what's your excitement level?
I'd say like a 3 or a 4 out of 10. If Prometheus had gone better, I feel like it'd be higher.
Maybe
you
he
know?
learned the lessons from Prometheus.
No, maybe. I mean, we've talked about it a bunch. I'm interested to see Danny McBride in a somewhat straight role.
Sure.
It looks like there's going to be a lot of xenomorph murderation in this
lot,
movie,
yeah.
so that's cool too. So yeah.
lots of slimy alien
Do
action
we
for sure.
do we want to do some box office predictions?
Oh boy.
You sure can. I am already aware of the fact that I will not be present
What's
for next
it-
week's episode.
What's
but,
it coming out against?
I don't think anything. I think it's
No,
actually
nothing.
yeah. It's kind of got the week to
It's a
itself.
nice- gonna be a nice
Sorry,
weekend.
Diary of a Wimpy Kid 4 is coming
Oh.
out. Yep.
There's
It's
been
also going up against week 2 of Snatched.
there's been 4 of those things.
Yes, apparently.
You know what? Am I the only one who kind of thinks that King Arthur movie looks fun?
No.
I was actually gonna say this is maybe the week that people like pick up on King Arthur and like are like, yeah, we gotta go see that.
How can you pass on Charlie Hunnam? Like,
Yeah,
man.
exactly. What if you
It seems
put
like pretty much everyone in the world did, though.
I know, but that's all right. I mean,
Wait, is
I
that
get
the
that.
Sons of Anarchy guy?
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I think I'm on record. I don't know, and if I'm not, I'll go on record now as saying that I actually don't think Guy Ritchie is good at directing movies, and like
Oh.
maybe never has been. And so like a
Ooh,
little bit of this
shots
is
Go
fired.
for
it's
it.
like really enjoying it.
Ow. It's off
He's,
their milk table too.
Shots fired.
he's in some real trouble right now.
All right, what did Prometheus do opening weekend? Can you find that out for me, John?
Oh my God, Eric.
Oh, I actually have it right in front of me because I was going to cheat. Opening weekend, it did 51 million.
Yeah, there you
Prometheus
go.
did
Thank
51.
you.
This is
I mean, I was
crazy.
someone who really enjoyed Prometheus, so I'm pretty excited about this one, but I can see why a lot of people didn't enjoy it. So, and I've tried to avoid any reviews, but I've already seen several headlines saying that it's not that great.
So do you think
Mhm.
this hits higher or lower than Prometheus? Why don't give me some numbers here, folks?
Well,
Let's just do it.
so yeah, and I was going to give you one other data point. Last week, Guardians of the Galaxy, in its second week, did 65 million.
Oh, and it's still out. Right.
yeah.
So good. So great. We saw it at the drive-in over the weekend. A lot of fun.
Yeah, I was looking
Yeah.
for some vintage. I was looking for some vintage Sony Walkman headphones today. Unbeknownst to me, apparently the dude wears them in the movie because the market for those things is absurd now. So, like, literally, people are selling them on eBay, like the headphones from Guardians of the Galaxy.
If you're of a certain age, you probably think those are the headphones of the future and not of the past.
Right.
Oh.
Exactly. John, give me a number. I want some bold predictions here.
I will go at 52.
Oh.
Ooh, I'll go with 60.
Joe,
I see.
I'll go 45. I think it's going to do
I was
worse.
thinking about that too, but it has
Mm,
butts.
I'll say 55
But it
in
has.
between.
Here's the difference. It has the word alien in the movie title, and it has aliens
Yeah.
in the trailer.
Yeah,
I just don't think Alien is that big of a draw for people anymore. Like,
I don't know. Covenant, though, people love words that they don't really know what they mean.
All right,
So-
who's the highest so far?
Jesus.
Whatever happened to the days of just putting numbers?
Hold on.
numbers
Also,
after
first of
movie
all,
titles?
I need somebody to write this down.
I was
Second,
about to say, is anyone actually
Yeah.
tracking this?
Second-
Let's write it down.
second of all,
It's
who's the highest right now?
I think Mark is.
I think I am with
Wait.
60.
I'm gonna go just
Okay.
to keep it interesting. I'm gonna go 66.
No,
And John said what?
I was 52.
No. And Mark just logged off in anger.
Joe, what did you say?
45.
Okay.
$1.
$1.
I want to know who gets the cruise to Greece when they win.
He's just bragging rights, really, until the next week. All right, CC, quickly here. What are you guys
Yes.
working on now in the book club? And then, Joe, it's on to you after that, buddy.
Oh, fuck.
Get excited.
Currently, we are reading Mongrels by Stephen Graham Jones, which is a kind of a werewolf tale. Next month, though, so starting in June, which will also be the book club as well as the Something Red episode, we're going to be covering Lovecraft Country, which is by Matt Ruff. And it is basically a book kind of exploring the conjunction between horror of H.P. Lovecraft and racism in the U.S. So the thing about that is that Jordan Peele just signed on with J.J. Abrams to produce that for an HBO series. So we'll be getting that pretty soon.
JJ.
Wow.
Did you have any idea that was going to happen when you picked it, or did you pick it after
No.
it happened?
No, I picked it before it happened. Shelton and I had talked about doing a Something Red episode, and it was listed on the book club list that people wanted to read. So I picked it, and luckily Jordan Peele liked it. So
Nice.
There you go.
lucked out.
Was
Something
it?
red. Hollywood
it's-
is watching.
Yeah.
It's nonfiction.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's kind of that in between. It kind of, I think it does a blending. I would say it's fiction with nonfiction elements.
Is there like a narrative?
Let me read you the.
Jeez.
Please. I love when people read on the show. That's always my favorite.
You want to hear the opening chapter, John?
Yes, I'll just read. It'll be an entire show of me only reading.
Let's do
It
it.
says that it's basically a guy who goes searching for his missing father, and he basically kind of finds his father in chains, and there's this ancient cult, and all these weird things start happening. So there's a blend of magic, power, hope, freedom that stretches across time and different realms and yada yada. So
Is this like
there you go.
just like a choose your own adventure kind of deal? Because I'm into those.
No, and it's 400 pages, so heads up.
Oh,
If you want to
God.
read it, you might want to start now.
No, thank you.
Oh,
You know what I actually
You've already
started?
lost Eric.
You know what I actually started reading that I think I'm gonna finish is that book that came out about Hillary's campaign a week or two ago. It's a doozy. Something
Eric.
else.
I can never understand the books you pick.
The machinations of my brain. I'm also reading right now the published journal. You remember the game, the original Prince of Persia was like an Apple II game?
Oh yeah, for
So
sure.
the guy who made that game also made a game called like Karateka or something previous to that.
Yes. Yeah.
So during both of those games, he literally made that game when he was like 19 years old, and he kept a journal the whole time of like the whole creative process of making it and technical process, and then later in life like released that, and then another one for Prince of Persia that's just like, here's my journals, like barely edited. So I've been reading through that because I find it interesting.
Was that it? I would love to see that too. Where did you track that down?
It's on Amazon. They're pretty cheap on Kindle.
Nice.
$5
I'll take a
something.
gander.
Yeah.
Karateka was my jam, son.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I it's interesting. It's an interesting read, but also like kind of mundane and weird, and it's like a weird look into somebody's life. Anywho,
You're not selling it super hard.
Yeah.
listen, John. I don't give
Never mind. I think I've lost it.
here's the thing, John. I don't give a fuck if you read it. I'm enjoying it. That's all I care.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay.
Joe, it is time. Please bring us your beer recommendation. Beer guts.
Oh, it's finally happened.
Oh man.
I'm
Literally,
so happy.
the look on Mark's face when that just happened was like my favorite thing ever.
Before I get into this week's beer, I do have to thank. I actually got a bunch of recommendations, and even a couple of folks that sent in like their band's music. All of it was like really good, and I thought really well done. I just we had discussed that. I thought like the polka kind of fit this better. So please do not take offense that I didn't.
Also,
choose
we
it.
should mention this song only goes on for a minute, so it's going to run out here soon. But it's called "Welcome to Bavaria," which is, of course, it is.
This feels good.
Yeah.
But this week we are doing I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House, and I'm not even gonna bother with what the movie's about, although it pretty much just takes place in a house. So I picked a beer from the good folks at Flying Fish Brewing Company, all the way out in Summerdale, New Jersey. And this is their Farmhouse Summer Ale. I don't think I've done a ton of farmhouse or saisons, as they call them. But it's a sort of traditional Belgian style ale. Obviously, this brewery's in Jersey, which is not in Belgium, but it's kind of their take on their beers.
It's
so
not?
no,
Oh.
as you might not be aware of. So I think for those of you who have never had a saison, it's probably closest to like a wheat beer, but not as sort of clovey. Like there's definitely like that lemon flavor to it, but this one actually has like a little bit of hops as well. It's just a very light sort of good beer for like this time of year when it's getting warm out. Some might call it like a lawnmower beer because you can, drink it while you're mowing the lawn. Only comes in at 4.7% alcohol, so you can still drink like a case of these and operate heavy machinery without any problems. And yeah, I mean, like I say, like traditionally these don't have a ton of hops, but this one I feel like does have a little bit of a bite to it. Plus you get like a lot of spices and things to it, but definitely not as sort of over the top with those spices as like a wheat beer. Definitely more sort of subdued. And just all around really good. Flying Fish puts out some really awesome beers. It's one of the breweries I really miss in the Midwest because they don't get out here. But if you do get their stuff, I definitely suggest you check it out. Flyingfish.com is their website. And there you go.
Love it. Thank you for that, Joe.
Yeah.
That's the beer recommendation, something you get here every week on the show. Hey, Mark, do you want to hear it again?
Yes.
Okay, ready?
Beer guts.
I kind of like how it sounds like the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme a little bit, like when it starts.
It does have a little bit of a.
Yeah.
Oh my god. The best part is that in the middle of a workday, I spent about 15 minutes recording like 20 different versions of that.
Yeah,
music
I was
together.
directing Mark like from across the internet, being like, okay, now, like he'd send me a file, I'd be like, okay, now you gotta be closer to your mic. Okay, no, you gotta do this. And then it's been sitting in my to-do list for like a week. I finally just did it for the show really quick. So
I will say too that as you know, I want to keep talking about my own voice, but I do love that we are in the era of BGH where the memes become reality. So like the Eric show becomes an actual show.
yeah,
Every time I've mentioned the beer guts thing, Eric used to get really mad at the suggestion that we even named the segment something.
well, I
and
refuse to say
here we
that.
are.
Like I'm never gonna say it's time for beer guts, but I'll put it in the thing. You know?
It's bubba beer guts. Eric.
Well done. Well done,
right,
everyone.
nice work.
Better
I
than
feel like
regular
the
stuff.
show is finally complete.
I mean,
I feel like this could be the last episode, actually.
we're done. All right, guys.
Ira and the douche.
Let's take a quick break to discuss this movie.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. From the prime time, bitch. Main feature.
And we're back.
It's aggressive to title your film a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
Yeah.
10 word.
It's bullshit.
Phrase.
It's bullshit.
Tell that to
is what
Fiona
it is.
Apple, John.
It's horseshit.
Oh, is this guy Fiona Apple? No.
I mean, I'm not sure why I would talk to Apple, but okay.
John Schnars?
Yes.
There's something going on in the world today that
Don't
there's
know what
something
it is.
going. I don't know. Yeah.
Something's
I
wrong
didn't
with the
like
ride.
as I said it, it started forming in my head.
And it's on the playlist.
It's not
Living on the edge.
it's not right, John. You know, there are people out there, people telling us that words don't mean anything, right? You can just say words and then later just say different words and then negate the words you said.
Were you workshopping this over the last
And
week?
a lot of us have been feeling like we are going crazy. Like, no,
Mhm.
words mean something, right? But we don't have the power to stand up for ourselves. And I think that's where you could maybe come in here, Schnars.
I'm
John.
always about standing up for
You
Because-
can judge a blind man by the color of his skin, John.
So, John, please help us restore our faith in the written language by bringing us the word of the day.
Eric, today's word is herbaceous.
Ooh, shit.
That's Herbaceous, herbaceous, of denoting or relating to herbs. That's pretty obvious. It comes to us from the Latin. There's actually a Latin word, herbaceous, which means grassy. So I actually came to this word because the title character of this film, the film that will not be named, her name is Lily. And a lily is an herbaceous plant.
Wow.
And you can tell that because lilies have no persistent woody stems above the ground.
Oh, I think Joe just rolled his eyes at you a little bit.
Well, there you go.
I was just
Well,
waiting
I
for
feel
Joe to
like
make a joke about his woody
Cece's
stems.
gonna save your word of the day here. So
I'm not gonna lie, I read through Cece's email and I was like, she must have had a word in here that I could use as word of the day. And it's like kind of on the edge. So then I had to just go with herbaceous. So
I mean, I was trying to leave that to to the professional. I wasn't trying to insert
you.
any words for you.
He's not professional. It's fine.
no. Like any good professional, John rips off his stuff from other people.
Well, yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. John,
yes.
JP
Eric.
Schnaps, the hero we need right now. Tell us what this movie's about. Who made this movie? Who's in this movie? What's this movie about?
Yeah, so it may come as a surprise to Eric and Cece, but this film was directed by one Osgood Perkins.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
who you may remember from our discussion of the Black
So
Book
interesting.
7 days ago. But yeah, so this we touched on it like super briefly last week, but essentially, this guy Oz Perkins, son of Anthony Perkins, portrayer of young Anthony Perkins. What the hell was the name of the psycho character? Never mind.
Norman Bates.
Norman Bates, yeah. So he's like kind of like floated around Hollywood. But all of a sudden, 2015 he makes The Blackcoat's Daughter, which was called February at the time. That has sort of like a limited theatrical run, or gets some screenings in 2015, but doesn't actually get distribution until 2017. Actually, after making that film, he gets essentially like commissioned. He makes a second film, and it's this one. It made in 2016. It debuts at Toronto International Film Fest, and is immediately released worldwide by Netflix on October 28th. So it's sort of like a Halloween-ish push from them last year. So even though this sort of is made after Blackcoat's Daughter, it technically came out before it, kind of snuck in at the end of 2016. Yeah, and so it's I don't know, it's an interesting film. I mean, we can talk a lot about it. I think there's a lot of kind of like things you can intuit about the production from having watched it. It's a super small film. At least on the Wikipedia page, they only list 4 characters, 4 actors. I think there was maybe like 2 other people, at least one that I can think of, in the actual film itself. So super small cast. It's essentially the story of this a live-in nurse, Lily, who goes to stay with this old sort of what's the word, hospice care
Woman?
Well,
Yeah.
I was going to say author. Yeah,
Nurse?
she's a retired horror author, and the nurse is hired by her manager, like the person that's managing kind of her affairs, played by Bob Balaban, interestingly. So you essentially have these 3 characters, and the live-in nurse. We're like told immediately in voiceover. There's a lot of voiceover in the film, but she kind of in voiceover kind of like tells a lot of the story of the film in essentially the opening sequence, which is like she's come to live at this house. She's here staying with this horror author. She hasn't like really read much of her work, but she's like kind of like she's like scared of it, but she's like sort of vaguely familiar with what she's done, because she is fairly famous, and she tells us right at the outset that like she's not going to survive. Essentially, she's never going to like leave this house. So the rest of the film is like, I mean, I don't want to say like nothing happens, but it is fairly stripped down in terms of narrative. You essentially have these 2 women, the nurse and the retired author, sort of interacting. The author is like, if not senile, like definitely, not 100% there. She keeps referring to the nurse as Polly, who it turns out is the character from one of her, I think her most famous book called The Lady in the Walls. And so then Lily goes and starts to read that book. That sort of begins to bleed into other spooky things that have begun to happen in the house, and general spookiness ensues on a relatively slow pace.
Like this synopsis.
Yeah.
Boom! Heyo. Hey,
Yes.
Cece.
Yes.
What'd you think of this movie?
I actually had been thinking about watching it for quite some time and had put it off because I had seen such negative reviews about it. I was always interested and I just kind of avoided it. And I'm actually really sad I had put it off for so long because I thoroughly enjoyed it. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I thought it was really well executed and in the vein of like Shirley Jackson and Charlotte Perkins Gilman, who is actually the author who wrote The Yellow Wallpaper. I can't find if she's related to Osgood or Anthony Perkins, but I know obviously that story influenced him in this movie. So the movie is a very true to the sense gothic tale, and I don't know, it's an intensely slow burn because that's those main characteristics. But yeah, I really liked it. I won't go into my, crazy symbols and metaphors and interpretations yet, but yes, I liked it.
Mark.
You were ragging on John for his synopsis, and I don't even think that he intended to do this, but he basically synopsized the entire movie. Not because it was a super long synopsis, but because that's what happens in this movie. It's like an hour and a half long, and not a ton happens, but it's very atmospheric. There's lots of great visuals. We talked about The Black Coat's Daughter just last week, and we said that movie was slow, and this movie is about 5 times as slow as The Black Coat's Daughter, and I would say with even less of a payoff in the traditional sense. But in terms of, in terms of being super atmospheric and having like a high quality of cinematography, I think this movie is pretty great. In terms of being a movie that I would like want to sit down and watch, I'd have to be in a very specific mood to enjoy this movie, but I can certainly appreciate it for what it is.
Joe.
Yeah, I probably line up with Mark here. I mean, Black Coat's Daughter last week that we watched, I liked a lot more than this. But I think this guy does a really good job of building tension for, probably like an hour's worth of nothing happening in this movie. It's a lot of like walking around a house and like reading a book and like weird slow motion shots. But it still has like a super tense feeling where like you're trying to figure out what's going to happen. Even though I feel like at this point we kind of know that this guy isn't big on like jump scares and like, spooky ghosts aren't going to jump out of the basement or anything like that. That being said, I agree with Mark that it's tough to like recommend this movie to someone who just wants to kind of watch a horror movie. Because there's not a ton of horror elements in this. It's really just like Cece said, it has sort of like this goth feel to it. There's a lot of fingerless gloves and eyeliner and things like that.
Yeah, she said goth. She said
I
gothic.
think goth is a little different than gothic.
No, it's mostly goth.
Not in Joe's head.
It is Days of Yorn. But that being said, I don't know if this is a sign of little Joey maturing, but I did enjoy this. Whereas I think like probably 10 years back, I would have, punched my face or something while watching something.
Yeah, I think it may be time to shut the show down now, guys. We've reached our zenith. Joe has matured.
Little Joey's all grown up.
Yeah.
Get hair in places.
John.
Yeah, I won't say that I loved it, but I agree in general. I mean, what I would say is I am very interested still to see like future stuff that Oz Perkins directs because it's super interesting having seen these two movies back to back. They are, fairly similar in a lot of ways. They like highlight some of the things that he's clearly interested in, and yeah, it just I don't know. It's not something I'm like super pumped about or was like came away from just being like wow. But I did end up enjoying it. Even when there were a couple times where I was kind of like, all right, let's move things along. So, yeah, I'll give it a okay.
Yeah, I think John. I'm kind of like along the line of like John, although I see some of like kernels of what CC saw. Like I had two very different experiences of this movie. It was like split up across viewings. I was only able to make it like 45 minutes in the first go round. Like it cannot be overstated how like dreamlike and slow this movie is, and it's intentional. You know what I mean? Like but it's crazy how slow this movie is. Like the way that it's like it's like a floating. It kind of just floats through the whole thing. And the first 45 minutes are like, if I'm being cynical, it's a lot of what I don't like about ghost movies, which is very, very subtle, spooky things happening and not much else. What sets it apart is that I think that this guy is a better director, and I think he has a real vision for this movie, and I think that's what kept me in it. And you see that really early on with these really long, drawn out, like almost time-lapse shots of the ghosts where they're just kind of flowing across the screen and you can't really make out features. Like that's kind of a cool thing, but it's also sort of what he hinges the entire experience on, or these kind of little tiny visual moments that he set up. So I shut it off. I came back to it the next night. I was like a little more focused on it, less going on. And when it finally starts to coalesce a little bit, there are some actually like really creepy moments. I actually really enjoyed this voiceover aspect of it. They do this thing that kind of reminded me of District 9, where they're like, not District 9, I'm sorry, Session 9.
Session, yeah.
Where they're just really subtly contorting the voice and it gives you this weird like uneasy feeling, and you get a little more of it as the movie goes on because they're starting to steer you towards what's actually happening. And then there's one scare in the whole movie. Maybe I don't know. The flashback is kind of scary, but there's one thing that's set up as an actual like, I don't even want to call it a jump scare, but that's kind of what it ends up being. And I actually found it becomes incredibly effective because the rest of the movie is so quiet and you're not really expecting it. Like I straight up jumped out of my chair and like I did a Joe.
Oh no, it was super freaky.
Yeah,
Like
it's the only real loud music in the entire movie, and it's like,
Well,
The music is really what gets you in it.
Yeah.
Like
it's I don't know. It's hard to like overstate. Like he has such a deliberate style, and even that sequence was such a long take. It was like a 30-second shot of just this woman's reaction, essentially, after this kind of like loud music. But the loud music doesn't even like go away. It just like gradually gets less loud, I guess.
I mean,
it's super strange.
There
but
are
really effective.
There are tons of long takes and a lot of him lingering on, like mundane day-to-day tasks and stuff, and it's all part of what he's trying to do. I do agree. I think that Black Coat's Daughter is a better film if we're just kind of looking at these as two of this guy's movies. But there's a lot of interesting things going on here. I'm not sure that I would recommend it to everybody. Like I think you have to, like I might call this movie artsy fartsy.
I think it's very honest to say that.
Like I think it would have been like almost more interesting as a sophistical pick because you guys could have bottled each other's farts and exchanged them.
I mean, it's more artsy than fartsy.
Yeah, I think and like I'll let Cece dig in if she wants, but like it's also super literary. Like
right,
it's very much about writing. It's like sort of about the act of like creating stories and capturing stories and sharing. So like so. It's definitely got an art house kind of feel to it. It's got that vibe. I mean, it's very intentional. Like the films that he was thinking about were not horror movies.
Right.
They were, like just, I don't know, like mumblecore, like French New Wave. Like there's like, it's like very different kind of influences. I don't know.
I mean,
goth, John? Would you say goth?
Yeah,
I think that
stuff, obviously.
I mean, you're correct, and his influences are very heavily gothic and very like.
Oh my God, Cece's about to mansplain this to you. I can now.
I'm
so excited.
Just do it.
I think that I mean, obviously, like authors like Shirley Jackson and Charlotte Gilman have these. I mean, they're literary in the sense that like they're these long, drawn out kind of atmospheric like tales, and that's. I mean, this movie is a absolute visual representation of that. Like from the moment that the movie starts, it is slow. It's really intentional with like the really mundane things, and like focusing on, things that seem really uninteresting or really unimportant, but that's really quite the opposite. I think that I made a comparison to, I know a lot of people also didn't really like Crimson Peak, but the plot of...
Who didn't like Crimson
I think
Peak?
most
It's
of us
a
like
delightful
Crimson
film.
Peak a lot.
Oh, I couldn't remember. But I know that a lot of people I talked to, like someone I went to see it with, did not like it. So I'm like, I guess most people didn't like it. I think that the plot of Crimson Peak and the plot of this film were very similar, and it's kind of a book inside of a movie. Like the plot revolves around this author who's become housebound. She's decided that she knows she's about to die. She wants to die in the house, and she has this hospice nurse come in, but the hospice nurse is, you know, she's kind of set up to carry on this legacy, even though she's not an author. And you know, when we start kind of learning more about the author also has a floral name. So you have Lily and you have Iris. You find out that the estate manager's name is Mr. Waxcap, which is a type of mushroom. So you have all these floral metaphors that kind of revolve around the very on the nose, you know, instance that everything beautiful dies. Like you have this lasting, you know, flowers are in the garden forever, then they get plucked out of obscurity and then they die. That's pretty much their lifespan. So that was a little too intense and too on the nose for me.
Yeah.
But what I really liked was when we start seeing more of the author's interaction with Polly, which Polly is also it's not a type of flower per se. There are different roses that are called poly roses, but there's also a poly house plant, which is really interesting since she is the lady that lives in the walls. But Iris and Polly have a very symbiotic relationship. Obviously, Polly has told Iris her story, and Iris has written it down and kind of, you know, put the story out there to elongate its lifespan. And there's a lot of really subtle ways that we see the house kind of take on this life of its own. And Iris even calls the house a house of stories. So it's just I can't read y'all's hangout while I'm trying to dance land to you.
I like how Cece's like, oh yeah, I thought that whole part of the flowers was too on the nose, but I'm literally like, this is new information to me.
Yeah, no.
No, I mean, but okay, but now that you
Explain
know
what a lily is to me again.
I mean, it was just there was once you pick up on that the two main characters are Lily and Iris, you're like, okay, obviously there's some floral, you know, influences here. I mean, if you really wanted to dig into it, lilies are associated with basically funerals, but also kind of they're supposed to represent that your soul has been, you know, restored its innocence after it's passed away. And irises are symbolic of the link between heaven and earth. So Iris herself is more of this medium for ghosts outside of, you know, the earthbound world. But I think that focusing more on the house being, you know, this this creature all of itself is really the basis of the movie, which I really enjoyed. And that Iris basically took Polly's story that she said Polly told her, wrote a book about it, and then got mad that Polly won't tell her any more stories. And we see all of Iris's books on her shelf, which the only other color besides yellow we see through the movie is green, and all the books are covered in green. And green is often symbolic of the link between the spiritual and the earthbound world. So we kind of get to question whether or not Iris was a real author or if she was just stealing a bunch of ghosts' real life stories.
Well, they say to her too, like, or she says basically, you get the feeling, and there's a line about it that at some point she stopped telling her things and she stopped talking to her, and that sort of seems to be kind of like a turning point, a bad turning point for the author.
Right. And that's why, you know, Iris starts calling Lily Polly, and you know, she kind of says, you know, Polly, why'd you leave me? Like, why, you know, like, you know, you were telling me your story and then you just kind of stopped. But you know, we're kind of left open to interpretation as to why Polly decided not to tell her story, and if she really, you know, if she knew Iris was more of this, you know, literary vampire that was just sucking up all of her life stories and passing them off as her own.
I kind of got the feeling too, like once the end stuff started happening, that like time wasn't linear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That it was sort of all now happening kind of all ways or something.
Well, you're getting it through Lily's perspective.
Sure.
and she's kind of like becoming distorted by the house. Yeah, I mean, I like to me, Cece, you brought up the point of like some of this stuff being like really on the nose. I mean, to me, that's like the downside of using so much voiceover.
Yeah.
It's in a lot of ways it's like he wrote a book because Oz Perkins also wrote the film, so
Mhm.
he basically like sat down, banged out like this homage to some of these Gothic authors, and then like instead of like editing it and translating it into a script, he was just kind of like, I think we can just shoot this book
No,
and see
I
what
agree.
happens.
I think that's probably exactly what happened because it's a little too literary in places rather than, visual and kind of in a
Well, and it's funny for a film that is as slow. And again, like the interesting thing would be here to have seen this in a theater, right? Because like if you saw this in a theater, you would have been forced like to be like really locked in on the voiceover. I think watching this on home theater is tough because the voiceover is dense. And if
Yeah.
you are not like super paying attention, and like I'll be honest, there are times where I'm like, is anything going on? And then all of a sudden it's like into some deep voiceover.
Yeah.
Like,
There
okay, like
cannot
she's
be when
You just
you're
need to watch it with a book of flowers and
No.
how they relate to each other.
No, you
But
just need to watch it with the subtitles on.
When
like
you're-
I
Oh.
only watch television and
Not a
movies
bad
with the
idea.
subtitles.
the
on.
biggest thing is like when
Joe can't
you're gonna watch this movie, there can't be anyone else around that's gonna distract you. You can't be
Mhm.
doing anything else. You should have the lights off. And I normally don't say that, but like if you don't, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah, no.
I mean,
Like
that's
I
the-
started watching this
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
10 minutes in, I was like about to fall asleep, and I'm like, I got to pick this up at another time because like I don't know
Yeah.
what the hell's going on right now.
It was
I
making
mean, it
me
brings up a really interesting point, though. Like, I don't know if this is the first Netflix exclusive movie that we've reviewed for the show, but
Exclusive.
yeah. But I mean, it like particularly with Netflix and Amazon and these kind of walled-off networks, you're starting to. It's now more of an established business model that instead of getting things that are already out there, they're making all their own original content. And I don't know. I don't have a really great working knowledge of all of the like Netflix exclusive horror films, but this is really interesting to me because like I don't think that this movie gets made if it's going to be a theatrical release because I think it's like such a it really is like a sort of art house project. So in a way, Netflix is kind of a perfect place for it to live because he gets his money to make the movie, and obviously I don't really fully understand how they make money on returns if they get money on views or whatever, but it's pretty well established that Netflix and Amazon and these types of places are good spots for things that are experimental because it's really just making kind of an investment in the network, and they don't necessarily need to like make money in the traditional sense. So in a way, Netflix is the perfect place for this. But like you guys said, like it's just a weird kind of paradox because I would agree that watching this in the theater would be ideal, but I don't think that this movie exists to be a movie that is supposed to be watched.
No, not with reclining seats. You'll be out.
I think that it would have been like a a festival film, and then it would have gone straight to
I mean,
video.
they did. So Netflix, all right. So like because this actually came up in the news this week. It's actually like interesting timing for this conversation.
Did
But
Joe write the news this week?
no, I meant like real news. But no. So at Cannes, they changed the rules for next year. This is the Cannes Film Festival in Paris, or
hosted by James
France,
Caan.
in Cannes
Every year.
But they changed the
Scott.
rules for next year to essentially like prevent Netflix from bringing films to Cannes because they have two pretty high profile films. I could look it up, but I don't want to slow down. But they have two pretty high profile films this year, and there is this like kind of pushback at Cannes because it's like provincial, like it's like French sort of like they have like a very specific like conception of like
cheese
is and like what the role of the Cannes Film Festival is in promoting French cinema, and they actually have like a lot of concern because to Mark's point, like Netflix and Amazon and some of these new kind of like production models or distribution models are now kind of like disrupting the way that films get produced and distributed. And so so to your guys' point, like this did play at Toronto. That's actually where it like opened. It was in Toronto Film Festival before. Netflix uses these things as as marketing as well as content that they want people to use, right? So like taking this to Toronto and saying like this is a Netflix thing, like that like burnishes Netflix reputation as a production studio. To me, the downside, the risk here, and just like talking abstractly about Netflix, is
The
that like,
con.
well, nice.
Oh,
It,
nice. That took me a
see you, Joe.
second.
I
Took
see
me a
you.
second.
if you have someone like Oz Perkins who like I'm on board, like I'll watch the next film he makes no matter what, but he needs like like there are times when like a studio and like having somewhat of a like process that involves many people seeing a film, giving you notes, and like turns into a better film. And I do think there's a lot of room that this could have been specifically at the script level, probably improved it to a film that's a little like that keeps all of the elements that we like, but actually makes it a tad more narrative and like pulls you
Narrative,
through a tad bit stronger. Like that's like to me like a fair trade-off for like, okay, Netflix like might have a little bit more control over your production. They're not going to give you like complete, just do whatever you want. But I don't know that. So there's like some ups and downs. The one thing I was going to say is I don't know, Mark, you mentioned like where this comes in Netflix. Like the other movie that's worth watching that I can think of was a Netflix original is I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore. Another like super title.
I was gonna say, is that a requirement to get on Netflix? So you have to have like a really long
5
fucking
words
title?
or more, please.
It helps with their like search rankings, I guess, on Netflix. But yeah, I mean, it's another film that's like really similar in a lot of ways, like super weird. No way it gets made and like released in theaters, at least like at a like any kind of wide level. And it like sort of has like some of the same things where like there's a lot I loved about it, but also like it's not. It kind of has some rough edges, which I don't know. Like if that's the trade-off, if we're gonna get more movies like that, I guess it's like a fair. I'm okay with it. I'd rather because like it ultimately is something that's more interesting than a lot of the horror that we see, and I would say the same thing about this. So I don't know. That was a lot of stuff about Netflix, but
Too much, really. More than we asked for.
I mean, I
Yeah.
get you can't really talk about this movie without talking about the fact that it is Netflix exclusive.
well, it's just super weird. Like we would never have watched this movie.
Yeah.
Like it just to your guys' point, like it doesn't get made probably any other way.
Right.
So
Netflix and chill, am I right?
It was a lot of chilling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Really
a
long
lot.
chills.
It's too. You might argue too much chill.
This movie's the conventional sense of chill. You're just chilling.
I was gonna say anyone that's like looking to get lucky, throw this on because people will be so bored 10 minutes in. Yeah, we got to do something
That's
else.
a fair,
Jesus,
fair
John.
point.
Swear to God, I won't make love to you if you just turn this movie off.
Would this be the world's shortest movie guide? It would be like woman washes berries seductively.
But if you want to talk about those, blackberries are
Sure.
symbolic of spiritual neglect. So
Oh,
it was interesting that that's the only food that you see in the entire film. And she
Wasn't there that
drops
5-minute scene where she makes a full lasagna?
I must have fallen asleep.
Somehow,
Lasagna is
CC
actually about spiritual fulfillment, Joe.
Somehow I feel like Cece's more in tune with the spiritual significance of fruit than the writer of Movie Guide. If I were to just to
Probably.
fashion a guess.
Oh, I think they're more worried about sex than fruit. So
They are very preoccupied with the various levels of nudity.
Of
they
her
allow.
male nudity.
Yeah.
Cece, was there anything?
male and female.
Cece, was there anything else interesting here you wanted to talk about? Since we're all kind of out of ideas.
Eric's projecting. I have tons of great
My
ideas.
notes from writing.
Yeah,
Oh,
Cece,
my-
Oh boy.
share,
What the
share some with me.
No, Cece, I was gonna say, like, going back to it being a little too on the nose. The one piece I missed most of the references, obviously, but I think at like several points she says something like, "I am now the rot in the house." Like there was a lot of this, like, "I'm rotting" or rot. Like that to me was like, again, like,
Yeah,
all right,
I think
get
that's
it.
You know what,
that's
though?
more of the on the nose. It's
You
like,
know-
look, I get that you are a literal flower, that you were telling me you are the
Yeah.
pretty flower someone has plucked from the earth and put into this house, and now you are slowly
You know what
rotting.
though?
But
I
like,
will say, like, as on the nose some of that stuff is, her delivery is so good.
I mean, Ruth
And-
Wilson is a phenomenal actress. Like, I'm not sure that
Like those
very
are
many other people could deliver that and not be
like I walk away with some of those moments being like the only things I'm really gonna remember from this movie is her creepy voice.
Yeah.
And I liked the weird little choice that he made of having them look at the camera at certain points. I found that really unsettling and kind of interesting. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of okay with it because if you take it away, there's nothing here.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mind the voiceover. I mean, that was the part that I felt, the continuous line of rotting, and then, the mold starts growing in the house. But really, the voiceover is more obviously what drives the film, but it also explains a lot of what is happening too. Like the whole reason that you never really see the ghost is because I think Lily is either reading from the book or she's kind of like reciting something that Polly has said that, or maybe Iris has said, that ghosts, that they kind of create themselves, that the whole reason that ghosts exist in a place is because they've forgotten that they've died, and it's like looking at their reflection through like a rain covered window or something. So that's the whole time, or the whole reason why when we see the ghost, she's very blurred and distorted, and then that's kind of like what John was saying, the time continuum starts changing and it becomes this more cyclical situation where you don't know what's going on unless you have that voiceover. So I'm not sure that I would have made it through the movie without the voiceover.
Would you recommend this movie, Cece?
I would, but yes, with a heavy disclaimer.
Mark?
You gotta get a good nap in, maybe.
Joe?
Yeah, I agree with Cece. Like, it definitely needs a disclaimer in front of it.
John?
I'm gonna say watch Blackcoat's Daughter instead,
Yeah,
and then if you were really into it, watch this.
What about the opposite way? Because I haven't watched Blackcoat's Daughter yet.
Oh no, you'll probably love Blackcoat's
Yeah,
Daughter.
I feel like this. I mean, there's not many flower references, or at least
Oh,
that
that's
John
okay.
picked up on. I don't know.
How would I know? I bet you
there might be some other references.
I bet you there's a billion flower references, and I'm just not smart enough to pick up on them.
Yeah.
There's way more stabbing though. So.
Yeah.
Oh,
I would say if you fancy, you might like this movie, but you just gotta know what you're getting into, man. That's all I'm saying. All right, guys, it's gonna do it for the review of that movie with a too long title. Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
Something almost beyond comprehension is happening to a girl on this street, in this house, and a man has been sent for as a last resort. This man is the exorcist. Rated R.
This is Courtney Gaines and Malachi from Children of the Corn, and you're listening to Bloody Good Horror.
Send your emails to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or hit us up on Twitter at BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH. And don't forget to pick up back episodes of the show at podcast.bloodygoodhorror.com.
And we are back.
Rated R.
Rated R.
I love this new weekly guess the movie.
Yeah, that one was great. I've never heard that before.
Me neither.
Or seen the trailer.
A lot of these I've never heard before. And if you remember, 2 years worth I pulled, John. So
It's
this show may not even be around that long. You never
They
know.
really don't make horror trailers like they used to anymore, where they just talked about them. Like when you see this movie, you'll puke into your own butt.
I was gonna say, what was the last film that
Rated R.
tried to do that? The Green Inferno, and that was a bust.
I'm really waiting for the comeback. Like it was so huge through the 80s and the 90s, and then just VO and trailers completely disappeared. And it's almost, I think, like it's worse now because in order to make up for the context you're losing, you have to show so much of the movie that by the time the trailer's over, you're like, well, I basically just saw every beat of the movie.
And it also and it's like with horror movies, it just has to be like super fucking loud.
Yeah.
It's like whatever it is.
Exactly. We only have one email this week, info@bloodygoodhorror.com. Cody tried to do an end around on you, Mark, and send in some BGH classics just to me. But he sent me
Okay.
like 10, and I'm not gonna read all of them. I do really like this one from Schnars. This is from our I Frankenstone episode. Frankenstone. Who's that? Who's Frankenstone? I don't know who that is.
You're losing it.
It's from Sly and the Family Frankenstein.
I Frankenstein. Schnars says to Eric, "Will you stop
like it.
looking at pictures of me when I'm not around?" I like that one
That
a
stands,
lot.
by the way.
Yeah. Insidious 3 episode, Eric says, "Is this some weird Midwestern thing like cornhole?" I don't know what we were talking about.
Cornhole's fun for everyone. So
Yeah. And that's it. There's some more, but I don't want to ruin all the fun for everybody else, you know. info@bloodygoodhorror.com. Mark, we're also on Twitter.
Sure. And so, as a segue from that, if you are a patron, patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror, and you're listening to one of our 10 years worth of back episodes, which is insane to say out loud, and you hear something silly that you think should be read aloud again, tweet it to us with the hashtag BGH Classics and try and fit the episode number if you can, and we will read it on the show. This first one is from That Baseball Joe. "We are definitely acquaintances." And that was Joe after Eric gives a heartfelt discussion about the friendship of the crew on episode 300.
Confirmed.
Yeah.
We are acquaintances. That is true. Next one. Also from That Baseball Joe. "Who has a crossbow anymore? Just get a bow and arrow like a badass or get a gun." That was John on Hush, episode 375.
Yeah.
I did chuckle at that. I don't even remember saying it, but it
Yeah, I
made me
mean,
laugh.
at the point you have a crossbow, just get a gun. Unless it's like you're in the Walking Dead apocalypse and your excuse is there aren't that many guns around.
I can't remember who had the crossbow. Did she have the crossbow or did the guy?
I have no
I think the
idea.
guy did.
What movie is
I
this?
still Hush.
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 The guy must have.
I still haven't seen it.
Hush.
Oh, you should watch it.
You
That's
should.
what,
It's
that's what I hear.
pretty-
Everyone tells me I should watch it.
It's pretty good.
All right, next one is from J Har Zero. "While discussing creepiest location, Casey, Uncle Touchy's puzzle basement,
Ah,
episode 270, Dead Alive."
classic.
Classic.
I do, yeah. Uncle Touchy's puzzle basement is pretty funny.
Was that Dead Alive? That must have been the remake, right? I don't think we've ever done the original.
What? Dead Alive?
Still alive?
Oh, Dead
There's no-
Alive. Never mind. Sorry.
You're mixing up your dead and life movies.
Thought it was
like Dead, Evil Life, Evil
yeah.
Live, Dead.
Evil
That'd be
Dead.
I think they probably will. Maybe they will remake that movie. You never know. No? Okay, cool. This last one is also from That Baseball Joe. "Were you secretly thinking I'd like to see a 3D burning cross?" Eric to Mark on Final Destination 3D.
Dear Lord. What was the context of
No
this?
idea. No
You
idea.
know? You're going to have to become a patron to find out.
Pass.
Okay.
Hard
We
pass.
also We also use the hashtag AskBGH. If you have a question, tweet it to us with the hashtag AskBGH, and we will maybe read it on the show. This first one is from Game Watch Apple, the artist formerly known as RJNC. "When are we getting an Eric show when he talks about all the times he fought Mark? I, of course, am assuming he won them all."
Like physically fought. I mean, that's just our childhood. Get us drunk, and we'll tell you all about it.
Yeah.
I've seen it at least once.
Yeah.
That's true.
I
did-
Kathy loves to tell the story of the one time that I fought back and punched Eric in the face and scared the shit out of him because he wasn't ready for me to fight back.
I don't recall that.
I know you probably blocked it
You
out.
blocked it out, yeah. Totally blocked it
I
out.
do remember.
Not a thing.
I do remember DDTing you on the concrete way too hard at Horror Hound Weekend.
Yeah, fuck
Yeah.
it. You know, it's a couple concussions among
Yeah.
brothers.
Adorable.
Anywho, next one is from Evil Lynn 822. Also, her name is Unhelpful Yoda, which I like. I don't know why I think that's funny.
Oh.
Anyone subscribe to Shudder? If so, any suggestions?
Yeah, most of us are on it. It's Tales from the Dark Side is on there. The show.
I think, what isn't what the hell's that movie with it was supposed to Faces of Death, I think is on there, which is
Oh man,
Oh, wow. I didn't
I
know
will
that.
say, yeah. So they
Holds a
have.
special place in my heart.
Oh no,
Yeah.
never mind. Never mind. I was just about to say they have something, but actually that's Amazon that has that.
You're thinking of Pornhub. That's what you were thinking of.
yeah.
No, because recently on Amazon, I've discovered they have like nice HD prints of some of the Friday the 13th sequels. Like, and I don't own the Blu-ray, so I've actually never seen some of these prints. I started playing part 2, and I was like, I was blown away by how it looked because I've been watching DVDs for like 20 years. One of the cool things, if you're a person who's willing to jump in, like always looking for something new, I'm not necessarily like that because I like my comfort food and it's hard to get me to commit to like a new thing. But if you're like adventurous like that, Shudder is really great because of the way that they do these curated lists where they have like filmmakers and horror people come in and be like, here's a list of movies I like, or it'll be themed. They do themed lists every week. And so if you're willing to jump into stuff, they kind of give you a lot of ways to do that. They also have this Shudder TV thing where they're just always playing a movie, which I kind of like. Although for some reason every time I do it, it's subtitled, which, what the hell, Joe? What are we even doing?
Reading. It's fishing season. I got no time for reading.
So I'm looking at it really quick right now. They've got Night of the Living Dead, the 1990 version up there, which is pretty good. Take Shelter, which obviously is amazing.
That Take Shelter was great. I loved that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, Take Shelter was really very cool.
They got pictures
Speaking
of
of
tiny books.
Of a slow movie, but that slightly more engaging slow movie.
Oh yeah.
Speaking did you guys ever see his? We never covered on the show. It wasn't really horror, but Midnight Special. I don't think it's on Shudder. It was on HBO for a little while.
Yeah, it's still on HBO right now.
They also have the Never
I have
Sleep.
not seen it.
They have Never Sleep Again, which is a Nightmare on Elm Street documentary, and also the Crystal Lake equivalent. It's like Crystal Lake Memories or whatever. So I don't know, like if I were a more adventurous horror fan willing to just, when I'm bored, be like, I'm going to play this movie that I know nothing about, I think this service would be a lot more useful to me than it is currently, but depends on who you are, I guess. There's a lot of great 70s Euro trash on there, too, if that's your thing.
Yeah, if you're in the mood to just spin the wheel and watch something totally random, I think Shudder's probably pretty good for
I mean, the selection is actually like, there's a wide selection. Whether or not any of it's good is, who knows, but.
Yes. Okay, cool.
Hell
Next
Baby.
one's from
Hell Baby's
Love.
on there.
Hell Baby. That was a good movie. Next one's from Lovecraft Tapes. Have you ever had to pee so bad while driving you used a small glass Coke bottle because the 12-ounce ones were too roomy?
Glass?
That's a tiny wiener joke for everybody.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it took me. I had a little trouble putting that together. But.
Too roomy.
Oh Christ!
It's love.
CC missed that conversation last week because she didn't listen to the show.
I know.
We had an
sorry.
extended.
You know what? You're lucky.
We had
I forgot that came up, and
we had an extended, detailed conversation about peeing in bottles on road trips.
yeah. I apologize to the listeners.
Although I
Or
will say that
everyone.
some of my camping friends have just bought the mechanism that females can buy on Amazon for $7 to help them pee in bottles.
What's it called? Is it like the Wizinator or something?
Oh man, I don't even know what it's called. Give me 2 seconds and I will tell you what it's called.
I'd like
To the
know,
internet.
please.
I will
To
read
the
a tweet.
internet.
I will read a tweet in the meantime.
Come on.
This next one is from Skizbot. When I saw The Witch in the theater, it sucked. Have you ever had a movie-going experience ruined by a bad audience?
Yeah, lots, but they're hard to
Yeah,
blend
probably.
together at this
I
point.
think I went through like a string of movies when I first moved to Chicago that had like small children that should not have been in like horror movies.
You just got to start going to movies on like Sunday afternoons and when no one else goes to the movies.
So I saw The Mist when I was living in Florida, and I went to this theater that I never went to. It's kind of more downtown with a friend of mine, and there was like a group of like, I guess teenagers, I don't know, I'm just assuming, in the back, and they were like harassing some girl so bad that she went and got a cop, and a cop came into the theater and like had to escort them out, like all in the middle of The Mist, which is like, you know, this very subtle like character driven.
You know, there wouldn't
thriller.
be any mist if she had her Go Girl urination device
true.
in camo.
But that was the one that I remember being like super upset about.
Wow, if we ever had clearer evidence that Eric literally never listens to anyone on the show, it would be just now when Susan's bringing up the Go Girl female urination device in camo, which, by the way, is the most absurd collection of words I think that you could put together at one time.
I mean, I will say it's an absurd name, but I have heard that it is very useful and that it works. So
The problem with that is it reminds
in
me.
case you're wondering.
It reminds me of Go-Gurt.
Go-Gurt.
Yeah, the yogurt.
It doesn't look anything like Go-Gurt.
Oh, I love the.
I'm just saying the
logo,
name is
just
the
like
same.
a woman with her arms and legs crossed.
Yeah.
Oh my lord.
Oh my god. That just reminds me of the Stadium Pal. Are you guys familiar with the Stadium Pal?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What?
I've
Uh,
seen
I can't wait. Can we all just sit here in silence while Cece Googles it and we can just look at her reaction to what it is?
I'm more interested in the
Nope.
reviews of this product.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, Stadium Pal is like basically a plastic bag you strap to your leg.
Yeah.
That you pee like, and then you do a catheter, right? Or it's got like some type of
It's like a condom.
some type
basically.
of harness device.
that you just pee
No
into.
thanks.
So here's the questions and answers. Question: How many ounces is the tube? It looks too small to hold the pee. Answer: That is why my mother didn't care for it.
Oh my god.
Jesus Christ. Okay, next one is from Lycanthropology. Who is the pretty thing that lives in the BGH house? I think the answer to that question is John.
John,
Schnars.
obviously
It's
John.
Obviously
Only in
Schnars.
B next
It's
though.
definitely me.
I'm going to read this, even though it's from Casey and it's not in the form of a question, and he should 100% know better. And I hope he listens to this and hears the admonishment in my voice. But he said, I'm just going to assume that you all hated it, though I was the one who put it on the list. Ah, well, I liked it a bunch.
That is true. Casey saw this like I think right when it came out. I remember him. He kind of said like, we might not want to do this on the show, but I liked it. It was like one of those. So, yeah.
I mean,
Casey
there's
shows you.
I think we all liked it and can agree that it is excruciatingly boring. It's like one of those weird things where those two things can happen at the same time, which is strange.
I wouldn't say excruciatingly boring. That's
No,
Yeah.
at moments it's but I didn't hate it. Like I didn't walk away being. I'm not going to put it on any of my lists. So.
Oh no. Well, it doesn't qualify anyway. Sorry.
Sweet.
Well,
Next
that's
one
fine.
is from Mi Corazon Mi Amor. How good is Ruth Wilson's How good is Ruth Wilson's hot vampire mouth in The Pretty Thing?
Is that what she
Pretty,
has?
pretty good.
Yep. Great. Next one. Same person.
Hot Vampire Mouth was the name of my band in college.
Yeah, there you go.
So goth.
I am the pretty thing that lives in the house. Possibly John's autobiography title.
Mm.
Yep.
It's
And
actually a biography written by Eric about
By
me.
Eric, yeah.
So,
Schnars is the pretty thing that lives in my house.
yeah.
and I'm never letting him out. Last one is also from Mi Corazon Mi Amor. My rendition of this week's movie title is I am the thing that's fucking about in your house. What's yours?
I may have
I don't
made
know. I
it.
think that one wins.
I may have made it the whole show without actually saying it. I'm pretty proud of myself. If I do say so.
I was going to go maybe with like Moldy Wall Simulator as the title for this movie.
Really, you could just call it like caring for an old lady.
Yeah. I actually really want to know what the budget was in this. It's one of those things like because Netflix produced it, you'll never know.
$13.
You could have made this movie for like $400, I think. Like without if you didn't pay any of the actors.
Hey, Nana, can we borrow your house for a weekend? Hey, Nana, want to be in a movie? Okay, cool.
Can
Depends
we
if
talk
those
about how I
blackberries
sent
were
all
in
pictures
season or
of my
not.
house and it looked like that?
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. So
Bring that
Cece,
up.
Cece goes.
That is a southern ass murder house. if I've
Yeah,
ever seen it.
Cece goes. Oh, this house reminded me of the house I grew up in, and she sends what I guess are like Google photos.
Yeah, they were Google
But
photos.
like they look
Yeah,
like
Street
weird.
View.
They look like evidence shots. And straight up, this was like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house.
I was
Like,
gonna say,
they're-
that was really weird. The picture had a guy with like a leathery mask.
like literally
picking
the
up a
same,
girl.
the same like blocky construct. There's no houses to be seen anywhere. Just fields of grass all around, and like it looked scary.
I
Just
need
gonna
to show you the insides because when she goes up the stairs, it's the exact. I mean, you know, that's a very like typical Victorian craftsman style house of like the early 1900s. So they're all pretty much made the same. But when she walked up the stairs, I was like, oh, that's some intense deja vu. So I took screenshots and sent them to my family member.
Yeah.
So I think we know that it's
In
Cece that lives in the house.
in the Google Street View of Cece's old house, when there's just like a guy in the front yard with a chainsaw over his head like this, and then like a bloody lady running down the street.
I did
A
notice
woman bursting out of the front door trying to escape.
chicken bones hanging off the tree.
Yeah, I thought that part was weird, but other than that, it looked like a great
Yeah,
house.
yeah.
Jumping out of the second floor window.
Yeah, it's like mid. She's flying through the air and it captured it.
It's just a blur.
Oh, my
Oh.
And that's it. That's it for tweets. That's the best we can do.
Lick my
No
plate.
more tweets.
Lick my plate, Mark. You know.
You dog
You
did.
dog dick. Next week, we're gonna lick the Xenomorphs plate with acidy spit.
It's covered in slime and goo.
Oh, eat right through that plate.
Gross.
It is time for Alien Covenant.
Covenant. Covenant.
Parabole.
Sounds like Cece's gonna join us, and probably
Andy's in.
someone else.
Andy's in. He's confirmed.
Joe and John hate you, so they're leaving, but Casey's coming back, so we're gonna switch it up next week.
We're going to watch I Am the Slimy Thing That Stands on Your Spaceship.
That was good.
I like that.
I see you, Mark.
I like that a lot. Nice.
well done. All right.
All right, everybody, nice work. It's gonna do it. for
Thank
this
you.
Episode of Bloody Good Horror. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you next week.
Adios.
See yous.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.